You're listening to Wisconsin's Afternoon News. In depth, pain at the pump.
Let's get behind why maybe we're seeing what we're seeing at the pump. John Calce is an oil and gas industry expert, AmericaFirstRefining.com. John, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you today.
Hey, take us inside the way that this works. Wars, international tension affecting what we pay at the pump when we're a net exporter of oil. Explain why this works this way.
Sure. Well, in short, the U.S. has become the gas station to the world. As the Strait of Hormuz got closed, you had the cessation of not just oil exports from the Persian Gulf, but there's a lot of refiners there as well. And that started tightening supplies across the whole global system, especially in Europe and Asia. So all the tankers that were heading towards the Persian Gulf for a fill-up redirected towards the Gulf Coast of our country. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing this rise in prices, is because there's now greater demand, right, for products in our country and lower supply around the world.
John, if the Strait of Hormuz were to reopen tomorrow, how soon would we see gas prices go back down?
Well, it'll take a couple months. What you'll see initially is oil prices start to come off, and you're seeing that today as another report of a ceasefire has come up. That will bring crude prices down. That takes some time to work through the system because, remember, refiners globally have inventories of crude that they purchased at these higher prices. They'll process that into refined products, into gasoline and diesel. So you'll see it take a few months for that to happen. But oil prices will come down pretty quickly. And I would expect if we had a complete cessation of hostilities and things got back to sort of normal, we would be back in that sub $3 a gallon gasoline environment here in the U.S. by the end of the year. We'll see a quicker come down in prices in the U.S. than they will elsewhere because we have a very robust refining sector. And so we've seen less of a rise, and we'll see a faster decline than other places.
Industry expert John Calce is with us on WTMJ as we go in-depth pain at the pumps. How important is OPEC? Is it the factor it was in the 80s and 90s when everybody talked about OPEC?
Well, it's taken quite a hit. The UAE actually has elected to leave OPEC, and they are the second largest producer in the Gulf. They make about 5 million barrels a day of oil, and they've been restrained by Saudi Arabia, who's the big dog, so to speak, at OPEC, and they've only been producing about 3 million barrels a day. The UAE is interesting in that they have access to avoid the Gulf, where they have a pipeline that runs over to a place called Fujairah. It's actually on the Arabian Sea outside of the Gulf. They're increasing the size of those pipelines to avoid the Strait of Hormuz so that nothing like this happens for them again. So overall, OPEC is weakened. They'll have less control over prices. And I think that you'll see, if we get some kind of relief in the Ukraine war, you'll see global oil supplies bring back to, like I said, where we were hopefully about a year ago. But OPEC by and large is reduced in power because of this.
So in Wisconsin, the average price per gallon of regular gas is $4.26 a gallon. Many are worried it will get to more than $5 a gallon like it did for a while at the start of the war between Russia and Ukraine. If the Strait of Hormuz stays closed, how many more weeks until we could see that or even $6 a gallon?
Well, that's a great question, and I don't have an exact eye on that kind of market. I think in the U.S., again, we've seen quite a bit of rise. We're in the $100 a barrel oil. As they say, high prices are the cure for high prices. What you're seeing in Europe is twice what we're paying here, and so that's now impacting demand quite a bit over there. So you're seeing, I think, the outer limits of the price in that $5 range. I'm not saying it couldn't go higher, but you're starting to see at these prices where now consumers are making different decisions about how much they're driving, what they're spending their money on, et cetera. So that kind of puts an artificial ceiling in it. If you had a complete breakdown in Hormuz, you could see oil go much higher. But I think if you kind of think back even to when oil was in the 150s, at a certain point, people just stop driving as much, and that corrects the price pretty quickly.
So, John, if I had a garden and I was growing corn and I had chickens and my family ate on the corn and the chickens, and suddenly, and I sold some of that, and I needed to stop selling some of it because my family was going hungry because I was selling it, I would either grow more or I would sell less. Oil companies have record profits. Can they crank things up? Can we send less oil away? Can we somehow solve this internally?
Well, we have an interesting situation. That's a great question. We have an interesting situation in this country. Today, we export about 5 million barrels of crude oil and import 9. And the reason that we're forced to do that is we haven't built a new refinery in this country since the 1970s. And that's actually what my company's addressing. We're building a new refinery inside the port of Brownsville, and it's designed to process light American shale crude specifically. Our refiners on the Gulf Coast already run at 95% plus capacity, but they can't take any more of our shale crude because, to use your analogy, they're designed to process wheat, not corn, right? So we unfortunately have to import a lot of heavier crude oil because their systems are just not designed to process any more of our light shale. So our refinery will do that. Unfortunately, we will not be operational until 2029. To give you an idea of how hard these things are to build, I started this project back in 2014. It took me over 7 years just to get the permitting done. It's going to take me, and then I took a few years to that's a good question. There's a lot of rules. We followed all of them. It just takes a lot of time. You've got to submit for this agency approval and that agency approval. And in Texas, the Texas, the government and the EPA did a good job. There are just lots of statutory reasons you have to go back and forth. Then once you've got that done, you've got to find, the right partners to put the money together for. We'll spend about $4 billion building this thing, and then you have to build it. And building it takes 3 or 4 years. So in total, this project for me will take almost 15 years from concept to operations. We can shave some time off that, but it just takes a long time to work these things through.
John, it sounds like you better start working on the next 3 or 4 right now. If you had to make one prediction about gas prices this summer, what would it be?
Well, I'm hopeful. Let me say I'm hopeful that we get a resolution in the Middle East. I think you'll see prices come down. If that happens, you'll see prices, come down. I think, as I said, America is better insulated than any other place in the world because we do have a lot of energy here. So I'm hopeful that we'll see prices by the end of the summer, under that, $4 range for sure, and hopefully by the end of the year under $3.
There is also discussion in Congress about a possible federal gas tax holiday. Nothing's been passed yet, but how do you feel about that, John?
Well, that's a Band-Aid. We're about 18 cents a gallon on gas tax. So that'll help. I mean, every penny helps the American consumer. But the reality is you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul because a lot of that gas tax goes for highway repair and other things. So, and unfortunately, you guys track politics probably more than I do. Given the gridlock in Washington, I don't know if those guys can agree on a ham sandwich most days. So I'm not sure that's realistic to get done.
John Calce, good perspective, good information. He's an expert in this area. AmericaFirstRefining.com if you'd like to find out more about his company. John, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
For more information on Wisconsin Afternoon News, in-depth pain at the pump, go to WTMJ.com.